Hey there, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Book Reviews with John Henry Sheridan. And on today's menu is Mustaine by Dave Mustaine and Joe Layden. I think the subtitle is A Heavy Metal Memoir. Mustaine, A Heavy Metal Memoir, or Mustaine, I don't know how you properly pronounce it. Dave Mustaine. Okay, so there's so much for me to say about this. It's amazing. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Dave Mustaine is the guitarist, primary songwriter, and singer for the band Megadeth, the historic thrash metal band Megadeth. So this was unbelievably easy for me to read. I hesitated. I usually buy books in bulk, meaning like I'll be in the mood to buy books. I'll go search a bunch that I want, order them, and then they sit on my shelf for the next few months, half a year, as I slowly read them. This one sat there for a while, and I didn't know if I was ready for it. I knew it would be probably quite easy to read once I started, but I don't know if I expected it would be very dark or something, but it wasn't. It wasn't very dark. It was dark, but not like, it was nothing shocking, because I knew about him quite a lot. There was a time in my childhood or early teenage years when I would have put Megadeth as one of my top 3 favorite bands, I would say. I listened to him a lot. I loved the guitar sound. I did like even the singing, and definitely the lyrics, the imagery, the drumming, bass. The whole band was pretty awesome to me. I knew they were a little bit dark and negative, more so than some of the other bands I liked, but still appealing. And so like recently, as I was reading this book, I went back and listened to some Megadeth. Of course, when I read a book about an artist, I listen to that music. Like I listened to a lot of The Doors. When I read The Doors, Jim Morrison book written by John Densmore. Anyway, so I was listening to this album recently. So Far, So Good, So What, which came out, I want to say 88, could have been 87, maybe about 88. And it was with a lineup that only lasted one album, but that album really kind of meant a lot to me. Most Megadeth fans wouldn't really agree with that. Even Dave Mustaine, I don't think he thinks much of that album, but it has its place in my heart. And like I just listened to it on a jog recently, the whole album, and pretty much knew all the words. It was kind of amazing because that's how much I used to listen to it back then, and also how well the words were written, that they could stick in your mind even without traditional verse chorus structure. So about the book, it's very much a rock star autobiography. Kind of skirts over the early years, although he does pay attention to his early years, but very quickly you're, in his late teens when he starts playing guitar in bands, and then of course you get quite a bit about the early days of Metallica. I shouldn't say of course, but you do get like at least a whole chapter about the early days of Metallica, and then the aftermath of him getting kicked out, and then he goes and forms Megadeth, partially in revenge, partially just because that's what he wants to do. And he says that Lars Ulrich from Metallica is his old buddy and also his nemesis, and I understand what he means by that. but I think he mentions Lars's name in his book probably as often as his wife's name, Pam. So, just to give you an idea of how funny that dynamic is. It's very interesting. And it's very public. And so what do I love about Dave Mustaine is that he reminds me of John Lennon. Of course, not musically, but in the sense that he's very outspoken, very public. Not as public as John Lennon was, I would say, but close in different ways. And he's very, and you know, like the interdynamics. So you knew about John Lennon and Paul McCartney and their kind of feuds, and you know about Dave Mustaine and his feuds with his own band members and Metallica guys. So similar, like whether you like Dave or not, you have to appreciate his candor, his frankness. He just tells you his opinions of people and inside the scenes and the way things work in a way that naturally, you know, got him a reputation of being a jerk, rightfully so. But at the same time, he is authentic to his vision of himself, I would say. And then, you know, he goes from being this really down in the gutter, naughty boy, fighter, violent, drug addict, alcoholic, maybe not sex addict, but definitely, you know, lived the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle, and breaking rules. And then he eventually, after several stints at rehab, 17, I think he mentions in the book, he does have a religious conversion, an enlightenment, if you want. I think around 2003 or something like that, where he decides to become an active Christian, and it's pretty fascinating because the music is so dark, very often apocalyptic and nasty, you know, vengeful, and he still kept on with the band and writing music in the same vein even after he had a spiritual conversion. I think that's fascinating. I don't quite get it, but I am happy that happened to him, because as I read the book, you see that as he got older, he did become wiser. He did become a more balanced person, healthier. He's still Dave Mustaine. I mean, this book I think was published 2010, so you know, it's 2024 as I do this, so a lot has changed. I don't really know what he's been up to that much in the past 14 years. But yeah, like I said, I was actually a huge Megadeth fan. I kind of forgot. And so the story, and a huge Metallica fan, so their stories, you know, overlap a bit. So much of this I wanted to know, so much of it I half knew already. So just so easy for me to read it and hear these just insane stories. Okay, so I laughed. I want to say I cried. I definitely laughed out loud. I think I came to tears once or twice while reading it. I was shocked, just like mouth agape, like what? You know, with some of the stories. And I don't doubt for a second that any of them is true. But I will say that it's very clear that he's an egomaniac. And I say that without judgment. It's just whatever, from the way he grew up to the way he lived as the frontman of a very popular, successful thrash metal band. He thought who he was, and for better or worse. And even though he learned his lesson so many times, like so many interventions, people confronting him, saying what an ass he's been and how he's untrustworthy and all this stuff, he still goes back to his personality to, you know, to a degree where it's recognizable. It's still Dave Mustaine. And, you know, I think he, like I said, he evolved very much, matured as a human being. But, you know, as of writing this book, it's still that kind of opinionated, somewhat righteous in the sense that he thinks his opinion is very important. You know, it's almost like a fact, the way he states his opinions. I don't know, I'm sure he's changed in the last 14 years, but whatever. It was so entertaining, so fun to read. If you're a Megadeth fan, I'm quite sure you're gonna like it, love it. If you just like to read rockstar bios, also very entertaining for that purpose. For the history of thrash metal in America, it offers a bit for sure, not a whole lot. You see how Megadeth interweaves with bands like Exodus, of course, Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, like all those are mentioned and they interweave, and more bands, but not a heck of a lot about the scene. A little bit, you know, but you know, that's not the purpose of the book. But to get the inside of this guy's mind and memories, it's very fascinating. And of course, it's intermingled with a lot of like reflection and perspective, but and opinions. Anyway, I enjoyed it very much. Mustaine, a heavy metal memoir by Dave Mustaine with Joe Layden. Alright guys, that's all for now. Until next time, keep reading and keep rocking.